Hey everybody, it's time for this week's episode of Real Talk, the Market Snapshot, what's happened in Northern Virginia real estate in the last 7 days, and close to under 10 minutes. But we have a bonus at the end of this. The numbers for May are in, so we're also going to look at how did May of 2025 compare to May of 2026. Where is the market trending? All right, let's dive into this. Okay, so first of all, I'm shooting this market report in the car. I am in between showings and listing appointments, but I really wanted to get this information out to you guys so that you could have know how to navigate the market this week. The market took a surprising little twist, so there might be some opportunity here. So as we're going through this, I'll kind of explain what these numbers could mean. So first thing I want to go over, since we're doing both market reports today, the first one, the snapshot, is covering the last 7 days. During that, we are using what's called lead measures, or the measures that give us real-time effect. So we're not looking at sold data, we're looking at how many properties went under contract in the last 7 days and how many new properties came on the market. So that gives us our supply versus demand ratio, and it gives us as close to real-time action as we can get. And then we'll go into the contract trends to show what that meant with regards to the contracts, and then we'll talk about what that means for you going out into the market this weekend. Then as we go over the month-over-month report, that is using what's called lag measures. That's sold data, that's information that gives us a broader view of the market so that we can understand where the market is trending. And so the reason we can't use that to determine what we're doing this week is because in that sold data, we're taking everything that was closed in May. So let's look at a property that closed on May 1st, okay? That property that closed on May 1st likely went under contract on April 1st. So that data is the beginning of April. That's the market activity at the beginning of April. It closed in May, then it took 30 days to get collected into the May stats, and then we're halfway through June now. So that data is anywhere from 60 to 75 days old. So that doesn't give us ideas about what we should do today, but it gives us an idea of where the market is trending. So it just gives us a bird's eye view. All right, so let's dive into the lead measures, then we'll dive into the lag measures. Okay, so as always, our black line here is the buyer activity, number of properties that went under contract in the last 7 days. Our teal line is the new inventory. That's the number of new properties that came onto the market. So demand is the black line, supply is the teal line. You can see the demand dropped last week pretty significantly. Kind of surprising, but if we look back at last year, the same week, it did the same thing. So this week just drops off. We're getting into graduation, we're getting into school ending and so on. So we're going to see over the next couple of weeks a trend of downward motion, because anytime school changes, buyer activity drops off. And then we saw a flattening of the inventory. So the fact that inventory flattened and buyer demand dropped significantly, that moved us down into a buyer's market. So if this continues and does like it did last year, you can see that this next few weeks might be a little bit of an opportunity for buyers. There's just less demand because people are starting to travel, school getting out and everything. So there's going to be a little bit less demand. So this could be an opportunity for buyers to take advantage of. So what does this mean? How did the contracts look? Well, contract trends, this again is from Cardinal Title, largest title company in the DMV. 249 transactions that came through. We are looking specifically at Northern Virginia, so you can see that 45% of the properties went higher than list price in the last 7 days. 25% went at list price, so 70% went at or above list price. You can see that a very close number to that, 73% of the properties went off market between 0 and 22 days. 49% of those were within 7 days. So almost half of the properties went under contract in a period of 7 days, and 70% of those of all comp properties went under contract at or above asking price. So what about contingencies? They're staying pretty consistent. 61% got finance contingencies, 69% got their appraisal contingencies, so that's good, protections for buyers. And even the inspection contingencies, 65% of the buyers got inspections on their contract. So this is good. We're actually seeing this stick through the summer. We saw a couple weeks where it got down to about 50%, but for the most part, the majority of buyers are still getting their contingencies in the contract. And then as far as cash versus financing, there was 89% were financed, and then 11% were cash. Seller subsidy 24%. This almost doubled from the last week. So some sellers got some concessions to their contract, and 90%, excuse me, 96% of sellers offered buyer agent compensation to the buyers. So that was helpful. So if you're a seller, especially when there's less demand and there's more inventory, you've got to be prepared to potentially help those buyers out with their agents' commissions. Okay, buyers, this is a great time. If you're in the area and you're still looking, get out there and purchase a property. Right now is the time to do it. Okay, all right, let's go into the monthly now. Okay, so month over month, now we're talking about May of 2025 versus May of 2026. You can see the number of new listings was up 5.5%. So inventory went up in May of 2026 versus May of 2025. But the number of sales was up 12.5%. So the demand was higher that went up much higher than the inventory did, which means that there was a strong seller's market in the month of May. Days on market was even, stat about 15 days on market for May of 2026, same as May of 2025. Months of inventory, so this is the absorption rate. It went up a month. It went up by 1. So what this means is if there was no new inventory that came on the market, and the rate of purchasing continued, how long would it take for us to run out of inventory? And it went to 3 months this year versus 2 months last year. We call this the absorption rate, and what this means is anything around a 5 or 6 month absorption rate is considered a normal market. Anything below that is considered a seller's market. Anything above that's a buyer's market. So we're still in a seller's market based on this statistic as well. And then the median sales price, everybody's always interested in this number. In May of 2025, it was it was 790. In May of 2026, it was 813,513. So properties are continuing to appreciate about 2 to 3%. This one was at 2.9% month over month. So we're still in a seller's market. Prices are still going up, and we're looking at a good fair market this year. Again, with buyers getting their contingencies and being able to have their protections in their contracts. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to let me know. Reach out to Kelly and me. We'd be happy to sit down with you, go over your personal circumstances, and see if it makes sense for you to try to buy or sell in this market, depending on what your situation is. You can reach out to us at 703-783-2143, and we will see you next week.